Stay tuned. We're getting closer to that rapture.
Holy Spirit, come and refresh me. Holy Spirit, come.
Welcome to Through the Bible in 5 Minutes, and I'm your host, Brad Keeney. And we continue to get closer to the rapture today. And we're going to be looking at that as we lay the groundwork here and kind of try to tie things together. But let's get started with our prophecy for today. We've had to skip that a couple of times. But again, we want to see what God said about Jesus' first coming and how that was fulfilled, because we're looking at his second coming now. So, moving on to that, let's look at Isaiah chapter 11, verses 1 and 2. And here we see, "There shall come forth a rod from the stem of Jesse, and a branch grow out of his roots. The Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, and the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and of the fear of the Lord." Well, we know Jesse was King David's father, and we know King David is in the line of Judah, and we know that that's the line of Jesus. So, for example, looking at Matthew chapter 1, where you see all those genealogies, and this person begot this person begot this person, that proves who Jesus is, because it's a proper bloodline. And remember, too, that one of the reasons those bloodlines are important is because if someone wanted to come along and say they were the Messiah, and they weren't of the right bloodline, that's something you can't control. You're born into that, and that's you just can't control that. So that's one of the reasons I think God uses those, because it's pretty miraculous. But now let's get back to our study. Today we're at episode 21, Revelation chapter 7, verses 1 through 3. And what we're looking at here is this rapture situation again, too. And the rapture is even mentioned in Isaiah, for example, in chapter 26, verses 20 through 21. It says, "Come, my people, enter your chambers, and shut your doors behind you. Hide yourself, as it were, for a little moment, until the indignation is past. For behold, the Lord comes out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. The earth will also disclose her blood, and will no more cover her slain." So there again we see we're getting into that period of time right now, and I think that's where we're going. But as we're laying the groundwork for that, remember, we have seen that the seals were being opened in chapter 6. Remember, chapter 1 was an introductory chapter. Chapter 2 and 3 are the chapters with letters to the churches, with things we can learn. Chapter 4 and 5 is the throne room, and it shows what it's like to be in God's throne room. And the Lamb comes and he opens the title deed of the earth, which breaking the 7 seals. And we looked at the first 6 seals, and we're getting ready to break the 7th seal. So seal 1 is the Antichrist. And that's instead of Christ or in place of Christ. And that's deception. He's deceiving us into thinking that he is actually the Christ. Remember, seal 2 is war, and seal 3 is scarcity. In other words, working a whole day just to eat. You can't get anywhere there because things are so scarce. And that leads to death. War and scarcity, people can't eat, that leads to death. But then the 5th seal, that's very interesting because that's Christian death. That's martyrdom. So we know that this is not God's judgment because he's not going to kill his own people. But then with the 6th seal, we see Jesus shows up. They're hiding in the rocks. They're wanting to stay away from the Lamb, which they see him coming. And the big sign that we see that indicates the day of the Lord is coming is the sun, the moon, and the stars going dark, or the effect that is on them that shows that Jesus is coming back. So that's really important, and that's kind of where we're at now, as we just saw that. So, and remember, chapter 7 is kind of like a break time between chapter 6 with the seals and chapter 8 verse 1 where the 7th seal opens. We get the first 6 seals in the first one. But during this break time we see some interesting things that we're dealing with. And let's look at those first verses and see what that says. Chapter 7 verse 1. "And after these things I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, on the sea, or on any tree." Verse 2, "Then I saw another angel descending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried out with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was granted to harm the earth and the sea, saying, 'Do not harm the earth, the sea, or the trees, until we have sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads.'" Now God's always good about protecting his people again. That's why we know the 5th seal is not him killing us. But this is a special situation, which we kind of see explained by Paul in Romans chapter 11, verse 25 and 26. It says, "For I do not desire, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own opinion, that blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in." Remember, Gentiles is everyone who's not Israel. Verse 26. "And so all Israel will be saved, as it is written, the deliverer will come out of Zion, and he will turn away ungodliness from Jacob." So what we're seeing here is Jesus is the deliverer and he's coming, but there appears to be a time of the Gentiles, and there appears to be a time when he's going to turn his attention back to Israel. We'll talk about that more next time, as we'll need to look at the book of Daniel to get an idea of where we're at here, as Daniel's important to understand Revelation. So I'll see you next time on Through the Bible in 5 minutes. God bless.